Cheryl's famous quote is done is better than perfect, right? But that you just
Also, just start. Just start.
And just
like
do
make
it.
the list. Do the first thing on the list, and every day get up and put one foot in front of the other and keep working towards what you're working towards. And like I say all the time, I don't subscribe to failure. It's not failure. It's an opportunity to learn and pivot and change. Hi, I'm Cheryl Medeiros.
And I'm Colleen Hungerford. And this is We're Doing This Right, right? A podcast for the whole woman, mind, body, soul, and business.
It's humor infused, as real as it gets, inspiring, and you'll walk away with real usable tools for life and business.
If you love what you're hearing, please share with a friend, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode, and rate and review whenever you listen.
So find your earbuds, lace up your walking shoes, or cozy up with a beverage of your choice. It's time to dig in. Hey guys. Welcome back. We're doing it right. Kind of. Yes. We're figuring it out as we go.
Yes. And guess what? We've been doing it right for a year.
Happy anniversary, you guys.
Anniversary. Episode 52.
I know. I wish I could send every one of us flowers to celebrate a year of just chatting together and learning and growing and thinking about business and life and friendship and parenting and growth and failures, which I don't subscribe to that word. They're lessons.
Yes. Resiliency and determination and persistence.
Our own definition of success, whatever that is. We do it our way. We don't have to do it the way that everybody else is doing it.
We were chatting a little bit before, and when we were planning this episode, I was kind of reflecting today on, oh my God, like we've been doing this for a year. And for those of you who joined us not in the beginning, this podcast started out as Cheryl wanting to do a podcast and then messaging me and being like, hey, I saw your Instagram story about your morning routine. I'm going to start a podcast. Do you want to come on and talk about your morning routine on my podcast? And I was like, absolutely. Yes, of course. And then she was like, actually, do you want to just do the show with me? And I was like, absolutely.
Well, because it turned into a FaceTime call and we're just bantering back and forth about what she'd said about the morning routine on her car rant on her Instagram, which if you don't follow Colleen on Instagram, there's lots of car rants and I'm here for them.
Yes.
And so we're just ranting back and forth about the morning routine. And I'm like, God, this is an episode. And then it's the like candor and the chemistry, if you will. I was like, actually, you're the co-host of this, because I knew that I didn't want to talk at an audience for an hour every week. That didn't seem like a methodology that would be appealing to me or listeners. And so I'm like, I was going to just in my mind have a revolving co-host. Okay, this week it'll be this person, next week it'll be that person, almost like each week just have a guest, I guess. Yeah. And there'd probably be some repeats. And then when I just spent a little time with Colleen, I was like, hey, actually, but you guys want to know something wild? You know, the 6 degrees of separation that you hear, like everybody's just 6 degrees of separation. Y'all, Colleen and I might have been closer than 6 degrees prior to meeting each other.
How insane is this? So just recap. So I grew up in California but not Central California, Northern and Southern. So I skipped over Central. Went to IU for undergrad, so that's my Indiana connection, but then went to grad school in Oregon. So I've bounced all over, right? So that's the background.
And she gets around is what she's saying, you guys.
Get around. And you've been predominantly in the Central Coast you were born in Michigan, but predominantly.
I grew up in Northern California. Well, I was born in Michigan. I grew up in Northern California outside of Sacramento, but very small town, nowhere near where Colleen was.
Yeah.
And then I moved to the Central Coast of California, so San Luis Obispo, in 2003 when I graduated high school, and I've been here since.
Right.
So been here a minute.
Yeah. So then we keep finding people that we know mutually from like random parts of our life. Like the other day we realized that we were not Facebook friends, which was bizarre. And so
that was weird.
I like friended her and I was like, oh, I was like, oh, you have a mutual friend with so-and-so? And she was like, yeah, how do you know that person? And I was like, well, I know them from Morgan State. And then she was like, how do you know Allie? Like,
Allie is married to one of my very dearest friends that I grew up with. And then Allie's got a best friend, and her best friend's married to a very dear friend of mine that I also grew up with. And I'm like, how the fuck do you know these people?
And I knew all of them from Oregon State, which was like so bizarre. Anyway.
Which is, you guys, a chapter I didn't even realize Colleen had in her life. I didn't know you were at Oregon State for a period of time. And then the other one was I was at Bunko one night and the podcast came up, and this woman that I've met when my girls were really young in this group in San Luis Obispo. If you're not in parent participation with young children, you need to be, because you'll make really deep, great connections. But anyhow, this woman that was at Bunko is like, wait a minute, how do you know Colleen Hungerford? And I'm like, she's my podcast co-host. How do you know her?
I forgot
So
about
wild.
that. And I knew her from when I worked in LA because she went to UCLA, and then she was a volleyball coach at the high school that I worked at. So bizarre that we have all of these commonalities, but also just goes to show, one, the world is small, and two, how important connections and networking and really forming relationships and connections with people, like how important that is, and how those connections last a long time if you are good at doing it, right? So we just love that. So anyway, so you were just like, join my podcast, and I was like, cool, yeah, let's do it. And we've been literally just doing it every week since then, plus sometimes more than once a week. And I think one of the things that is really important to mention is that, like, we didn't have any previous experience doing this whatsoever. We were literally Googling, like, how to podcast, and like, reading articles and watching YouTube videos and like researching among doing all this other stuff, and really trial and error. Here I am a year in, my internet's still fucked all the time. I've gone through like 2 microphones that don't work and I barely use them, but it doesn't matter. We've still recorded and produced 51 episodes so far, and we just keep doing it. And I think that really is a testament to who we are and what we do, and the example and the encouragement that we want for women and for our listeners and for anybody, is that, like, Cheryl's famous quote is, done is better than perfect, right? But that you just
start.
Just start. And just
like,
do it.
Make the list. Do the first thing on the list, and every day get up and put one foot in front of the other and keep working towards what you're working towards. And like I say all the time, I don't subscribe to failure. It's not failure. It's an opportunity to learn and pivot and change. And, there's been plenty of that through this as well. And we're still pivoting and changing and finding our way. And it's working for me. This is my definition of success. I am so filled with joy when we record. I'm filled with joy when I receive messages from our very loyal community who is, cheerleading for us, promoting us, reaching out to tell us that they enjoyed us, sometimes giving us feedback, which is important. And it's been such a freaking delight. I posted on my Instagram not too long ago, like, when people ask me if I'm still enjoying this, I'm like, more than anything, like, this is soul filling for me. This is self-care for me. And I know that if I need to learn about these topics that we're learning about, that likely you guys, my community, also needs it. So I'm just so happy to be shining light on things that I think are important, or that I need to learn more about, or that our guests, or not our guests, our listeners, our community tell us that they want to learn about. Like, we're just so happy to be here learning and growing every week, and then sharing that.
And I love all of those things. In addition, what made me so happy the other day was when Sarah Armstrong was on Sky Michael's Happier Human as a guest, right? those two really powerful, really amazing people connected and were able to offer value to each other because of our podcast, right? Like because Sarah was a guest and Sky was a guest and they were able to connect and because you connected them. And I have realized in the last few weeks, like how much joy and fulfillment it brings me to connect people together, even when it has no benefit for me, right? Like it is like, I was so proud. Like I felt like that was a big moment for us and for our podcast to be able to connect these really wonderful people in two totally different parts of the country, two different fields, and the more that we can do that and facilitate that for others is really such a gift for us, but also such a value add for our listeners, for our guests, like for us to be able to facilitate platforms for people's small businesses and to really shine a spotlight on them. Like that to me is just like, we have a question now when you apply to be a guest on our podcast. So if you want to be a guest on our podcast, please apply. And one of the things is like, what lights you up? And this lights me up. The podcast, connecting people, sharing, you know me, I don't like to gatekeep, like collaborating, all of those things. And I think we're not perfect and our episodes have not been perfect. And there's things that we'll continue to work on. There's technical shit we'll continue to work on. There's whatever, but we're just doing it. And we're just like continuing to create a really lovely community. And I'm so, so proud of that. I'm so proud of us for that.
I am too. I was editing my Instagram bio this weekend and I have on there master connector. And I mean, I really truly believe it. And on that note, I'm going to make an announcement. Dr. Jenny Bennett and Julie Palumbo, I would like to connect you next. I've not yet done that, but I told Julie I was going to. So I'm going to connect Seattle and Philly because I think that Dr. Jenny Bennett and Julie Palumbo will be such a great match and collaboration if they can connect. Like their mantras and their mentalities seemed so familiar. And that'll be like another one from like, well, just because our network has expanded and we know these people, now we're going to be able to connect them and how I think it's going to be great. I just love that. And I mean, it's what we're doing with the Inspire Her Collective as well. So, we've talked about it a little bit here, but we have our hyper local groups. So Colleen has her chapter in Indy. I have my chapter in San Luis Obispo. We're launching in Salt Lake City. We're launching in Charleston. We're launching in Denver. And so we each have our hyper local networks, which will be super beneficial for each of our, like every member of Inspire Her. Their local chapter will be super resourceful for them growing their business locally. But the second layer of that is this national network that we have where we are able to now connect members from all the groups and they can collaborate and learn and grow together as well and expand their own networks nationally. Like a lot of the people we work with or we've interviewed or they're running an online business at this point where like they can have clients anywhere. Like what Colleen and I do, as our main source of income is hyper local. But at the end of the day, we also have this broad network that we can connect our own clients and friends and family to all over, which is, you guys, spoiler alert, like that's super beneficial to a real estate agent. If you allow your real estate agent to connect you with an agent in your town where you're moving or where you're selling, that is beneficial financially to our business. Not only financially, but it's also just great for our network and us receiving other referrals from people that we've been able to send referrals to. And so I just want to make sure everybody knows that if you have a realtor you love, let them help connect you. And if you don't have a realtor you love, call Colleen and I, and we're going to be very happy to connect you to someone that we can match make you with, because we also understand, like, while I might not know Colleen's market, her real estate market, I know Colleen, I know her skills, and I can transfer someone over to her and know like if they'd be a good fit, vice versa. But Colleen's not the only agent I know. Colleen and I have been very intentional about growing a national network of agents that we know and that we can support our clients and our friends and family with nationwide.
Right. And even globally now. I have global.
Oh, yes, that's true. That is true.
Goes, please let me know. But yeah, I mean, I think that that is the theme and that is the thread that connects every single thing that we do, Cheryl, is just the matchmaking, the connection, the collaboration, and doing what we do to help and support and to lift up others. And I think that is a great segue into, we were going to talk about our favorite episodes of.
We are going to talk about our favorite episodes. So we picked a top 9 because we're not going to follow the crowd and do it like a top 10. How boring. We're going to do a top 9. The top 9 we separated into 3 that I felt were really impactful, that really spoke to me. Colleen had a few that were really impactful, that really spoke to her. And then we had a few that we agreed upon that were great. We both agreed. So it's 3 from me, 3 from her, 3 from us. And then honestly, would love to hear your top however many. What were your favorite episodes? What did you learn the most from? What spoke to your heart the most?
Also,
so
disclaimer this, that like we had 51 episodes to pull from, and to pick this few was very challenging. And so nobody get upset. Okay. Nobody get,
oh yeah,
we love them all. All our guests, we love all of you, and we love all the episodes. So nobody get upset. But here were the ones that we felt most drawn to or impacted by.
Drawn to today also. If you asked me next week, it might be a totally different list.
Totally. Can you pull up the list? Because I can't remember.
Oh yeah. Behind the scenes stuff, you guys. Technicalities over here. Yeah. Is that big enough for you to see? Do you need glasses yet?
I do need glasses, but I can see that.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'll go first. One of the episodes, and I pulled this one out because I feel like this is the episode that I most frequently referred to, and like for weeks and weeks and weeks to come. I just remember listening to this episode and like jaw open, just so impactful to me. So it was The Big Little Question with Despi Mays, and Despi Mays wrote a book called The Big Little Question. And to unharmoniously probably capture what the big little question is, if I felt like I truly mattered, what would I be doing for myself?
Right.
And as a working mom with many irons in the fire, if you will, I do a lot for everyone else all of the time.
Yeah.
And the things that get skipped are the things that are for me. So I've hardly been to the gym since I had children. Like exercise is an afterthought. There was a time in my life where I remember looking at people that didn't exercise and feeling like, how can they live their life that way?
Yeah.
And here I am, I've got a 7-year-old now, and I could probably count on 4 hands the number of times I've exercised, really. And I was an athlete up until college. I participated in races after college. It's been something that's been so important to me for a majority of my life. And that's also interesting to think about, the majority of my life. This last 7 years is actually very short in the span of how long I've been alive.
Yeah.
But it has been the biggest part of my life and the hardest part of my life and the best part of my life.
Right.
It's just so interesting. And I lately probably need to be doing more for myself to show up in the way that I'd like to show up for my family specifically.
Yeah.
So there's that. That's why that one was just so impactful. I think it's just like I live for other people. I'm like a servant leader, if you will. I work for clients. I want them to have the best experience ever. I just need to find a way to also fit in time for me somewhere.
You need to, it's changing that language. I hate the you need to, and I've mentioned this before, but it's just prioritizing. The time is there.
Right.
It's just prioritizing the time and prioritizing yourself. Putting it in there because there is time. Because
full stop.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Go. What's your?
Yeah, we all have the same 24 hours, and some people are making it happen. So we'll figure that out. That's a priority, and I have appreciated Despi bringing that succinct question to the forefront.
Yeah.
So, all right, Colleen, you do yours. You're one of yours.
Oh, okay. So really top of mind for me, because this was more recent, but I feel like this is something that has been very powerful for me. And that was our episode with Rachel Wainer. So Transformative Strengths, How to Harness Your Superpowers. And that is the Clifton Strengths conversation. And, the shift for me when I was able to do that assessment and look at those strengths and to really focus on what am I so good at, just innately, like me as a being, me as a person, whatever, like here's what I'm good at. And I should be leaning into that instead of this idea of always correcting what's wrong with you, right? And spending so much time on the things that you're not good at to correct them instead of pouring into the things that you're good at. And that has changed me pretty significantly in the last few weeks. Like we interviewed Rachel on the podcast, but we had talked to her previously in our CMC group, and just this idea of like using those to my advantage and using that language and using that as a way to help support me in my business and the things that I want to do, but then also help figure out, okay, great, here's what I'm good at, what I am not as good at or I'm not interested in. I need to find the people who can support me and who are good at those things so that I can fill them in, right? So that has been really, really impactful for me. Loved her.
I also think that when we shift our focus to the things we're good at, isn't that going to breed so much more self-confidence in us instead of always focusing on the things we need to work on? It's like, I mean, it's kind of like the energy stuff we've talked about and the vibrations and that. It's like the things that we give attention to are the things that are going to thrive in our life. I mean, it's like the grass is green where you water it, y'all. So if you are watering the strengths that you have and like just don't look at the weeds, or okay, the weeds are there and I can bring in some flowers over there
Yeah.
to cover those, or someone who's good at pulling weeds can go over there and pull the weeds, and I
Right.
can be over here watering this grass where I'm great at it.
Find the person who can pull the weeds, and that's what their strength is. And here's a very good example of this. When I 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever, I was asked to be on the PTA at our school. And I really wanted to be involved. And they were like, well, the position we have open is treasurer. So you'll be a treasurer elect. And then the second year, you'll be treasurer. This is not something I'm interested in. This is not a strength of mine. Like, not that I'm bad with money, but like spreadsheeting and tracking to me is not my vibe. But I wanted to be involved, and this is what was available. So I'm a yes. So I said yes. I did not do good at that job. Like, nothing failed. Like, it was fine, but I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't how I could contribute my best strengths to the PTA, right? And so fast forward, I was previously part of NABA, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners, and I was on their membership committee. And I had pulled back because I felt like there was a lot going on. But they've asked me to come back. They've asked me to re-engage. And so I said, okay, here's what I'm good at. Here's where my strengths are. Here's where I feel like I could be the best use of this committee. So if there's something that fits that role, then that's what I can commit to, and that's what I can make time for, because that is something I know I will succeed at. So this idea of understanding, like, also how to articulate and how to communicate, like, I want to be a part of this group, but I also want to set myself up and set the group up for success so that I can be a great member of this team and not just a member of this team who isn't really pulling my weight or isn't really contributing the way that I'd like to contribute. And it's really given me those tools and even that language to be able to articulate that. And I think that has been really helpful and impactful for how I want to be involved in things.
Yeah. I have like similar, different. The school, we have Teacher Appreciation Week every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not creative. I am not crafty. I am not those things. And that's fine for me. What I am is I'm very organized, and I am also very good at like motivating people to take action. So the way I've changed the way my kids' classes do Teacher Appreciation Week is I'm like, hey, does everybody want to pitch in an amount of money that you're comfortable with? And I have built this spreadsheet where you come in and you log that you sent money, you send money to someone. And now we're going to give these teachers like 5 really stellar gift cards instead of everybody brings an apple and a mug because the teachers don't want that shit. And people are like amazed by me. And I'm like, look, this is my skill set. You will not see me on Teacher Appreciation Week. They're decorating the teacher's classroom door. That is not my strength. And I am so fine with that. So I always just jump in and volunteer and say, I'll handle this part. If you guys want to handle like wrapping the gift cards and presenting them, like I'll collect them. I'll got that all day long. The other part's not my strength. So let me take this thing that feels hard for somebody else, but that's so easy for me and just handle it.
Right.
So that is, I mean, it's just another place like, and in the house, I mean, we should be doing this in our homes with our partners too. Like I'm really good at X, Y, and Z. You're really good at A, B, and C. Like let's divide and conquer that way. It's so powerful to do that because then everybody's just feeling better and more confident and just great. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Okay, what's your second one?
Wait, that's not normal? Pelvic Floor Health with Lauren Edwards,
Dude, this
OT.
one was so good. I think this one was probably one of our most impactful episodes, and the one I think we had so many people reach out to us about.
Yes. And I continue to share this episode probably the most when I'm talking to someone out and about because I am in this. Well, I mean, we're all here. We're all women, depending on where we are in our life. There's things happening with our pelvic floor that we have just been conditioned to accept and live with. And when I hear those conversations come up, I'm like, listen, while that's common, it's not normal.
Yes, that was such an important distinction.
There is something, yes, there's something you can do about that, or there may be something you can do about that.
Yeah.
Listen to this episode. I want you to feel normalized after listening to this episode that you're not alone. And then I want you to find someone like Lauren where you are so that you don't have to live with this. And I'm going to be super transparent. I had worked with Lauren right after my second pregnancy. My second pregnancy, I had like severe incontinence issues during that pregnancy. And then I went to work with her, even though my OB was like, are you sure you don't want to wait until you're done with your third kid? And I'm like, yeah, man, I don't want to wait until I'm done with my third kid. I want to not pee myself for the next year. So I worked with her. We did a lot to improve it. Things were really good. And then this year I relapsed with a chronic cough. And Mother's Day, I remember sitting on the bed, coughing, peeing while I coughed, which I think is like, no woman is surprised by that. But what then ended up happening is like, I was actually peeing when I wasn't coughing anymore. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck? And so I went back to Lauren and I'm working with her currently. And like, now we know my bladder prolapsed after having 3 kids.
Jeez.
And that's fucking crazy. And there's things that I can do about that aren't surgical. And, you know, I'm working very closely with her. I trust her tremendously. It's like a really good relationship, but I don't have to live with that. And you guys don't have to live with whatever it is you might have going on.
Yeah.
So I just was at Bunko the other night and a woman there was talking about how the piece of skin between your rectum and your urethra, your vagina, it collapsed when she was having her third baby, when she was pushing her third baby. She now has to like reach her fingers inside of her vagina to help push the poop out when she goes to the bathroom. And that's so hard that she's living with that. And when these things aren't talked about and you don't know that like that's actually something that you can get support for.
Oh my God.
You don't know that.
Woman, she's Louise.
So exactly. And women are just living with this, with shame and embarrassment, like these types of issues, because we're not supposed to talk about our lady parts. Well, go ahead and talk about them and find someone to help you with them, because while it may be common and it's not necessarily normal, and there may be something that could be done to fix it. So
yeah, I was just at this past week on Friday, I was Indy Maven. Let's shout out to Leslie Bailey. Indy Maven put on a women's health summit with a local clinic here, a women's clinic called Her MD, that is strictly a gynecological clinic and aesthetics clinic. So they don't do OB, which was very, very intentional because of issues like this, right? And overall women's health. And there's so many, that would be considered a pelvic floor, but also a gynecological issue, right? That when you go to an office that's an OB/GYN office, their focus is always going to be dominated by obstetrics and babies and things like that. And the post care,
because those are the urgent things.
right,
Those have to be dealt with now.
right. And the post care, or even just women without children, there are women who have never given birth who are also having these issues or having other, like physical issues and just this focus on true women's health and really advocating for yourself. We've talked about this a bunch of times now, but just know that there are resources out there. If you're local to Indianapolis and you're a woman, please go to Her MD and go to their website. They're phenomenal. They're evidence-based. They take insurance. This is a free commercial I'm doing for them now. But I was so impressed with what they do. I told my best friend, I was like, listen, we're making appointments. We're going together, right? Like we need to go and make sure everything's good. So that episode to me, when I remember exactly where I was recording that episode in Michigan on fall break. And I was sitting there at the table and I had my hand while we were talking, and I do this when we record a lot, like on my lower back on the left side. And she's talking to us and she's like, most women who have had children or have these dysfunctions have lower left side back pain. And I was like, oh my God. Like, oh my God.
It's me.
It's me.
I'm most women.
It's literally me. It's all, everything you're saying is me. So we love that episode. If you haven't listened to it, please go back and listen to Lauren Edwards' episode. And if you're local to Central Coast area, go and see her, please. She's phenomenal. Okay.
All right. Your next favorite.
Oh my God. My next, the one that I felt was really, really impactful was Half-Assed and Wholehearted with Katy Mann. Katy Mann's journey to Indy with kids. And she's a local kind of like parent blogger here in Indianapolis. But this one was intense and this one was impactful. And, she shared her story about infant loss and how that affected and changed her business. And through loss and through sorrow and through grief, sometimes other amazing things can happen in that process. And one does not beget the other or whatever. It was just, I was so honored that she was willing to share her story with us and talk so openly and so raw. And we didn't know it was coming. Remember, like we were just like, we didn't know. And I was just so thankful for her to share with us and to really understand and really see behind. Again, we talk a lot about peeking behind the curtain, but to see behind the curtain, like you look at her and she's, at least locally, she's got, a ton of followers. She produces this amazing website blog. She's such a great resource. But like the business that she has built and what has happened in her life while building that business, and talk about persistence and resilience and growth and all of that. Like that to me was just such an incredible story. And it's a really good listen. But there are, the trigger warning. We do talk about infant loss in that one. It's a tough one, but it's so good.
Very touching.
Yeah.
Okay, my next one, Beyond the Calendar, Syncing Lifestyle with Biological Rhythms with Lauren McAlister, NTP. So this one was just like fucking wild to think about at the different stages of your cycle. We all cycle 28 days, maybe not everybody anymore, but like a lot of us in this stage are cycling every 28 days. And at different points in that cycle, in different phases of it, if you will, you are better suited to be doing different behaviors, different things. So like the first couple of days of our period, we all know we're kind of tired and lazy and feel like shit. Probably not the right time to be out doing a big proposal. Or if you can manage your schedule in this way, like scheduling time for downtime and rest so
Yeah.
that then when you come out of that phase and you're into the next one, like that's when you've got the motivation to go out and do, like you've had the rest, now you go out and do the motivation. Or like when you're in that ovulation phase, you know, you are dynamic and people are drawn to you
Right.
because you're putting off all the pheromones.
Yep.
And like literally people want to come and find a way to knock you up. Like go and do your big presentations then, because you're going to be magnetic and dynamic during those periods. And even as far as what types of exercise you should be doing during each different part of your cycle, like when's the best time to schedule the trip to Disneyland?
Yeah.
It was so incredibly eye-opening to realize that we as women have this powerful cycle that we could lean into and make work for us instead of against us.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was just really eye-opening and remarkable conversation.
So it is. And again, talking about this Women's Health Summit, the conversation that I moderated was about cycle syncing. And I was so pumped because we had had this conversation with Lauren already. And I was like, oh my God, I know all these questions to ask. I know how to help this speaker. I know how to talk to these women about this. And it's this also this idea that like the work week and the 9 to 5 and the 24-hour reset was created by a man, right? Because that's how their hormones reset. And
Mhm.
this for us was such an important way. You know, you can't always control your schedule. Like you just can't.
Nope.
But when you can,
Mm-mm.
try to, you know, like you said, try to make that pitch meeting during the 3 to 4 days when you're ovulating, because if you can,
Right.
that's when you're going to have your most energy. You're going to be your most attractive, and attractive meaning like attracting people. And maybe don't schedule important meetings during your luteal phase where you're like PMSing and cramping and tired and cranky, and then you know your period's coming. And this idea of putting it on your calendar and really being aware and observant of those times.
Intentional.
Intentional. I love
Yeah.
it. It was such a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, that was your number.
Okay. So that was my number 3. So you do your number 3.
Okay, so my number 3, this was hard, but I picked our very first episode. I picked our morning routine episode, and I picked this because this is the topic that kicked it all off for us. This was the topic that I felt so passionate about. We didn't have a guest because we didn't even know that we were going to how to book a guest pretty much at that point.
Step like 3 in the step of 100
Yeah,
things to build a podcast.
exactly. And I felt like this was such a passionate conversation that we had about just reality and about life and about like how society pushes these ideas of what we quote unquote should be doing, or that really came down to. This is also when we first started talking about curating our Instagram feeds. But I was getting all this shit in my feed that was like, you gotta wake up and you gotta hit the CrossFit gym at 5 a.m. and you gotta drink your green juice and like get your whatever. And if you're not in the office by 8 a.m. and like hitting the phones and making the calls, like you're a failure. And I was like, cool, bro. Like, I'm so glad that works for you. But like, who's watching your kids while you're doing that? You know, like, and that's not something I always felt like I was failing because I couldn't do these preconceived ideas of what is success and what a perfect morning looks like and whatever. So we've gotten way past that now and known that that's just bullshit and you have to do what works best for you. And that might not even be the best thing for you. It might be, but creating some kind of routine for yourself in the morning that sets you up for the day is important, but it doesn't have to look like everybody else's routine. But this one will always have a special place for me because that was really where literally where we started and how we launched,
Mhm.
and a topic that we felt like was so important to bring to the forefront. And I think it was one that was like impactful to a lot of our listeners and they could relate to this so much. And it was just a great way to launch the podcast. So that was it.
I think the most eye-opening thing that I learned during that episode was the fact that the morning doesn't end when my kids wake up. because I felt like the morning routine, I had to do it before like I started with my kids.
Yes.
And then actually realized, nope, the morning goes till about 11:59, 59
Yeah. So
a.m.
you
every
can do
day.
stuff after drop,
So
right?
yeah, like there is still morning beyond when my kids wake up,
Yeah.
and kind of restructuring my day. And I've done like different things now, like knowing that at different times, depending on where, what our life looks like at the moment. But like, I like to sit in my car for 10 minutes before I walk into the office and read a few pages of whatever the book is that I'm reading at that time. Like just carving out moments to do these little things that are going to have a lot of return on my life. And there's like the Hal Elrod morning miracle morning book. And I read that this year with the 6 a.m.ers and Sky Michaels. And that was, he's got, I think the analogy is like scribes, and it's like write, move, be quiet with yourself, meditate. Like there's all these like things that people are finding when they do, they have a better day. But it was just so impactful for me to know that doesn't all have to happen at, 6 a.m. before my children have heard me move
Yeah.
in the house.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I really recognize is that that morning routine can evolve and can change in different seasons or different parts of your life, right? And not being so rigid and so stringent that if you're, and I think that was one of the things for me. It's like I always felt like if I wasn't doing it the right, quote unquote, right way, I was somehow failing, right? Or somehow like
Right.
I haven't done all the things to set myself up for the day, and now I've already failed and it's only 7 a.m. So
Right.
giving yourself a
Mhm.
little bit of space and grace and acknowledging that every day can be different, but mostly just to find that time to do some kind of regular things or more routine things that that are setting you up for success for your day, and those look different for everybody. Oh my god.
Okay, for those of you not on YouTube, Mater is making his video debut right
Oh my
now. He's
god.
biting my arm.
He's so
So
cute.
don't bite.
He's so big.
He's getting so big so fast. I didn't put him in his crate, so we're gonna have all kinds of gifts around the house, I'm sure, when I get up from recording.
Oh my god. Hilarious.
Okay, so
Okay.
now we're gonna go through the three that we equally agreed were impactful to us.
Yes.
So the first one, Invisible Battles, how one woman took her 6-year infertility journey into a mission to help others, with Abbe Feder.
Oh, Abby, I love.
So this one was just incredible. The thing that really I found them, I mean, the whole story was incredible and impactful and heart-wrenching, and then it ended with, you know, a happy ending and a career path for Abby.
Mhm.
But I really enjoyed the how to support someone going through this portion of the episode, because I think we all, and she said the thing about, if you don't bring it up because you don't want to remind someone of what's going on, like they haven't forgotten.
Yeah. They're
And that is impactful regardless of what somebody in your life is going through.
yeah.
Just acknowledge the elephant in the room
Yeah.
because they're thinking of it.
Yep.
It's not like if you don't bring it up, they haven't thought about it.
Yeah. And the
It's
other
there
thing
every day.
she said, and you talked about this too, is don't ask what you can do for somebody, just do something. Right?
Just show up.
Don't put it on them to tell you what to do. Just do it. If you
Because when
want.
someone's going through something like that, whether it's infertility, whether it's a new diagnosis of a chronic illness, whether it's an infant or pregnancy loss, regardless of what it is, that, and you guys know me now after a year, I am the biggest go getter that you will meet. I know what I want. I go after it. I make the list. I start. Well, I can tell you that in the most traumatic parts of my life, I simply go on autopilot
Yeah.
and like don't have a lot of thought, or it's just, it's insane
Right.
to be such a different person when you're going in something through something that is traumatic in the way that infertility is, or infant or pregnancy loss or any of these things, like the death of a parent, there's so many things that we all will go through in our lives that are so hard, just so fucking hard.
Yeah.
Just show up for those people. Just be there. And Abby talks about how she had this friend that just wasn't answering the phone, but she would call every day and leave a message, even though the woman wasn't ready to speak to her or talk about it. But she said this, and this really stuck out, was like, but at the end of my life, even if she never answers the phone, I can feel good about I continually showed up for this person that was in a really dark time and needed someone. Like, I let her know I love her through action and just by showing up.
Right. Abby's an amazing, amazing woman and a good friend of mine. I was so happy for her to come on and really, share her story, which she's very open about and has been. And I have learned so much from her, in so many ways, but particularly about fertility, infertility, the whole process, and just how to treat people and how to be a good friend. If you haven't listened to that one, it's got a lot of great tools in that one, a lot of great ways to be helpful. So that's a great one. Okay.
The reality of success, a heartfelt exchange with CEO Kristen Hitch. First of all, I'd like to call out that this one has our most views on YouTube.
Yes.
Which was really fun because we are every week, our platform that we use to produce and publish the podcast, they send us a recap of how many downloads and stuff we've had and which episodes have had downloads, and we can go in and see that on any given day. But we weren't really checking YouTube. We were kind of just new to YouTube. We were just toying with it, just trying it on for size. Sounded like that's what people did. And all of a sudden we went and looked and we're like 100 and something downloads on YouTube. Like, what?
Yeah.
What is this?
And Kristen is been one of my best friends since I was 18 years old. And again, this is one of those really cool experiences of watching someone grow into their success and that success is not a linear path at all, right? And watching her achieve this level of quote unquote business success, becoming a CEO, handling a big merger, of companies and whatnot, but also knowing that she is doing that while being a mom, while dealing with like being a stepmom, being relatively newly married, like combining families, dealing with life, but also doing success the way I would like to do success, which is like with compassion and with grace and with kindness. And I loved to be able to see and show our audience and show our listeners, here's this really badass woman who is a CEO and has reached this like really high level in her career. And she did it in a way that was so full of joy and so full of compassion and so full, of thoughtfulness. And that was something that was just so amazing to see. And I don't think that gets highlighted enough, right? Like we think of people getting to where they are in their top pinnacle of what they've decided their career is. And it's always like, I struggled and I had to do things I didn't want to, or I had to be really tough, or I had to, like whatever. And she had to do tough things for sure. But she was able to maintain like her just really kind, generous heart. And that has never left her, no matter what her role has been. And I think that that's such a cool lesson or experience or such a great example or role model for people. So I could talk about her for a billion years.
I also really like the authenticity of her sharing too. Like, while my career was being super successful over here, like I was going through a divorce over here, and just like that the two can exist at the same time. And I could mirror that. The last few years in my marriage have been difficult, and I have been the happiest professionally
Yeah.
that I've ever been. And those two things can happen not only in my marriage, but just with my family and being at this stage of parenting. I find it very difficult. I'm not the best at it. But work, I'm crushing it. I'm so good at work.
Right.
I'm so solid here. And then there's all this happening in the background over here.
Yeah.
And just acknowledging that like the two exist at the same time. And we are like a very dynamic and complicated beings.
Yep.
That I can be so happy here and be so having the hardest time over here. So just interesting. Really, really like the episode felt like a warm hug.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I felt like I had a new best friend immediately.
She is everybody's friend.
Okay. Our final highlighted episode. We couldn't do this countdown without Susie.
Oh my God. And this episode, so the mental load episode with Susie Adamson. So as everybody knows, unless you're first time listening, Susie is the like unofficial third member of this podcast. She's always, like she's come on a couple times. She listens every single day. She gives us all the feedback, and she's such a wonderful force behind Cheryl and I to help push us and love us and guide us in so many different ways. So one, we just adore and love Susie so much. But two, this episode was literally life-changing for me in my life. It was, so we talk about the mental load and everything that, traditionally in heterosexual cisgender roles, the woman or the wife carries, and that might be different in different other relationships, but the wife, the mother, all the things that in these traditional gender roles we're supposed to be responsible for in a relationship, and not just the physicality of and the doingness, but how much it weighs on us mentally and emotionally. And this is one episode that my husband listened to back when he was listening. I don't think he listens anymore. And it made such an impact on him and really changed some of the dynamics in our own home. And what I think was really interesting in that is that he listened to it and got this whole perspective, I think, that it wasn't just me, right? Like this just wasn't a me thing. This was a more systemic issue. And it wasn't just me complaining that I needed help doing the laundry or whatever, or that even thinking that I needed help doing these things when really these things are both of our responsibilities. It shouldn't be me asking him for help. And I can say he really stepped up as a result and really became a more equal partner. And it's not perfect, and we still talk about it all the time, but he really recognized that there was inequity in the partnership. And so for me, I'm so thankful. And I think it's a really great episode to like be able to share with your partner or share with another woman or share with somebody else, like just so that we all know that it's not just us. It's not just you, right? Like this thing that you're dealing with when you feel overwhelmed by everything that you are responsible for and the checklists and the remembering and the doctor's appointments and the kids syllabus and the did you bring your water bottle and the did you call the
and
guy?
Managing the relationships and the social calendar and
play dates and birthday parties and work meetings and whose career is more important and all of those things.
Who's staying home with the stuffy nose? Who's
yeah.
Ugh.
Again, I think it gives us language and a way to like talk about these things, right? Like, I've gotten to a point in my career where my contributions financially are equal, if not more now than my husband's, but yet there is still an expectation somehow that we've set up in this structure that I am what I call 95% parent, right? Like I'm the 95% parent. And so it allows me to give some language and some commonality to be like, okay, we need to share this load, right? It's no longer that I'm working less or making less, so I'm the one who has to accommodate. we both need to contribute to this now. So it's such an impactful episode, such an impactful topic.
Yes. And the thing that I wanted to touch on, you just did, was like, you'll get language here that you can use in your own situation, in your own life. And that is like one of our core pillars that Colleen and I really focus on, and we challenge our guests to bring, is just actual tangible things that you can walk away. Like, how many times have you sat in a very motivational room or with a speaker and you leave and you're like, I'm so fired up, I can't wait to start. And then you're like, what do I do?
What do I do now?
So that's one of the pillars that Colleen and I have, is we want to inspire and motivate you. And then we also want you to have a stepping stone, a first step that you can take to help you put that motivation into action.
Yeah.
So
it's how you
right.
get to the next level on everything, to be honest.
It is. You gotta have the first step. You gotta do the first thing.
Yeah.
Well, happy anniversary, you guys. I love you. If we were going to be together tonight, I'd get you roses and champagne and we'd snuggle, do our favorite show, a little bit of Netflix and chill.
Yes. Or whatever you would want. Maybe that's not what you want. Maybe you want to fold laundry. You want someone else to fold the laundry. That would be service.
Yeah, I'd totally hire you a house cleaner this week if we were together. Just like you, like a house helper this week, so you don't have to do as much. I'd spoil the shit out of you guys if we were together. So,
well, Cheryl, I am so thankful to do this show with you every single week, and I'm so excited for our year 2 and all the amazing things we're going to bring to everybody next year. Or this year.
Wait till you see our new branding and our new logo, or our new cover today, you guys. Get excited.
Let's get excited. We're always changing.
All right, you guys. We'll see you next week. Keep doing it right.
Bye.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this journey of laughter, life, and growth.
And remember, you're not alone on this path to success. We're right here with you every step of the way.
Please remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's conversation, we'd be thrilled if you would leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback means the world to us.
And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a good laugh and some practical insight into navigating the challenges and triumphs of our minds, body, soul, and business.
Remember, we're doing this right.